But then you also have the second major part of Final Shape, which is the new enemy race. Completely brand new. Like, this is the most new enemy we've ever received in Destiny. Like, we had at first the Taken, which are kind of new, but they're still obviously existing enemies, just black and reskinned, and obviously they're Takenified. You had the Siva, which is obviously Fallen, still very modified, very cool, like very unique, but they're still Fallen. What was it? The Scorn.
Yeah.
Also, very like to be fair, like Scorn was basically like a new enemy type. They're just behavior-wise, what they do, how they behave, the Screebs. They're very, very new, but they're still Fallen technically.
They're still technically Fallen, and there may be a bunch of species that we've fought before that are part of this new enemy faction, but I think it's fair to say that they are so twisted and so beyond what they used to be. This isn't just like they're undead fallen with slightly wrinkled skin. Yeah. This is like, nah, these guys have been twisted and there's a pyramid block on that guy's face. Like,
but even the bats, the Grims.
Yeah, the Grim. Oh.
They are completely,
like nothing.
They look like those little dragons that you used to see on Venus. Remember those with the wings?
Yeah.
They look almost, that's the first thing I thought.
I've got to talk about this because this is so twisted. So get this, right? We know that the Scions make up the two of the Dread, right? Which is the Attendant and the Weaver, who are the Stasis and Strand type gun line enemies that you would get. You know, that in itself gave us big implications. With the Husk, which is the sort of melee rushdown enemy that you get, sort of similar to a Hive Knight or a Gladiator. Get this, right? They have 3 fingers and they have 3 eyes. Physiologically speaking, the Weavers and Attendants look somewhat similar to the Scions in terms of just like they have the same number of digits, same number of eyes. Hive also have 3 fingers and 3 eyes. And what's even creepier about this is that when you kill a hive, occasionally its worm bumps out of it, right? Because that's what the hive are. They're a compound creature. And when you kill the husks, a Geist spawns, which looks like a hive worm.
Yeah.
So, like, the implication of these things being incredibly twisted beyond recognition is there. And the scariest one is the Grim, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Because nobody knows what that is. And the only few theories that I've heard is that it's one ancient alien race that was wiped out by Oryx, or there is one species within Destiny that also has 6 limbs. Because Grim have 2 wings, 2 arms, 2 legs, right? Fallen, Elixni, have 2 legs and 4 arms. So the implication that I've seen running around some circles, which is not proven at all, but is terrifying if it is that these are ultra-twisted Fallen, where their top arms have been turned into wings. And there's nothing to prove it whatsoever, but like, if that's even vaguely close to the truth, wow, that's so twisted, and I kind of love it. It's horrifying. Terrifying
it makes
to
sense
think about.
with the Witness and him just twisting and slicing and just making new shapes and new forms. The Husk, I mean, even the name Husk sounds hive-ish.
It's very hive, yeah.
And the kind of worm that comes out and attack you. I remember, I don't know whether it's speculation or but I remember the idea always being floating around of like, imagine if you like kill a hive and then the worm was to like attack you. Because obviously when you kill a hive, sometimes the worm pops out and then just like dies. But it would be cool if the worm attacks you. But yeah, it does seem, it does kind of seem hive-ish, but as also we've said, it's definitely not. It's completely transformed into a new thing. It's not just like, and even though the Scorn are very cool, they're a very cool like new enemy. They're still Fallen, whereas these guys are just completely new.
This isn't Hive Acolytes versus Taken Acolytes. This is if you put these two side by side, unless you did a closer examination like that, you would not sit there and say these things are the same. Yeah. Like, this is not a corporate wants you to tell the difference between these two pictures kind of moment. This is, oh yeah, no, this one does not behave like it used to, or does. I don't know. It's, yeah, the entire thing is that this is a completely bespoke looking group of enemies, which is such a refreshing thing for Destiny. And it, new ways to have to worry about fighting too. Like, I don't think people realize quite how annoying weavers are going to be just yet.
Yeah, weavers and attendants seem...
Dude. DPS phases, getting pulled out of a well. That's all I'm going to say. Like, that's all people will need to hate weavers.
I mean, scions in general are quite annoying, especially with the little flings you up into the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, these seem like just twisted, even more irritating scions. Yeah, the attendants and weavers seem... Is it the weaver, the one that pulls you? The strand one? And then you got the subjugators, which... They're kind of like... Aren't they supposed to kind of hang back and they kind of summon more enemies, and they're kind of like...
They're sort of the field commanders, but they're based off of Rulk, which Witch Queen raid boss.
They kind of hang around and play it. Strut.
Yeah, I hope they donkey kick. I really do. just for how iconic that was on like the day one attempts of Valve the Disciple that everybody was doing.
Rulk is one of the best enemies.
Yeah, he really is. And honestly, I'm glad to see that, like, within the canon of even the Witness's own forces, Rulk is sort of honored in that sense, because it was such a phenomenal enemy type to see just as a raid boss, and seeing it now as these mini bosses of the subjugators, who inevitably are also going to be things like strike bosses or the bosses of dungeons, or just encounter bosses in raids. It's going to be so wicked to see these things up close and to see how they fight. Because, Rulk was iconic, and these things step into its shoes.
And you still got the Tormentors, obviously, I guess, based off of Nezarec and the big lumbering little mini bosses. So they're always still fun to see. But yeah, completely brand new enemy type for the first time in literally ever. Like, again, we've gone through the Siva, the Scorn, the Taken. They're all kind of new. But these guys are just brand new, which is good and fitting for an expansion like this, and also just kind of makes the expansion feel more just unique and real. When you're just fighting a new enemy type, like when you're fighting Cabal again, it's just kind of like it's cool. Like even in Lightfall, obviously Callister, Cabal had a reason to be there, but you're still facing Cabal. They're a different faction, the Shadow Legion, but
a new coat of paint is nothing like literally just a new pair of wings in the case of the Grim, like, there's no comparison.
Kind of like how Forsaken felt. Like in Forsaken, being on the Tangled Shore against this Scorn, it makes it feel like you're fighting whole new things and Screebs and just different types of enemies. So when you're in the Pale Heart and you're facing these flying bats and these weavers and attendants and subjugators, that it's just going to feel like, I'm not just shooting dregs or hive, like, which is fine. And obviously there will be, we've seen there are, I think, is it Taken, Fallen, not Fallen, Taken, Ball.
I looked back through the trailer, and I've seen every enemy in there. I think maybe not Vex, but I don't know. I've seen every enemy. Yeah, I saw Fallen in there under House Salvation colors. I saw Cabal in there under Shadow Legion colors. Like, it looks as though either the enemies are being brought in as more of the Witness's forces, or it's doing that thing of what they said is happening with the environment, where basically these enemies, much like the environment, are being pulled from the Guardian's mind and their recollection. Yeah. So you're fighting Cabal or Fallen in this location because historically that's where you used to fight them. Yeah. Which also implies that the Dread are sort of a end of campaign sort of... How do I best put this? You'll definitely see them throughout each mission, but it'll get denser and denser the closer you get to the Witness's monolith, which I think is absolutely the way to do it as well, because you can have them make that surprising introduction, and then the deeper it gets, the more their influence spreads and the more the darkness festers. And I think that's absolutely the way to draw it out.